Welcome to NeuroNoodle's Neurofeedback and Neuropsychology Podcast, featuring tech legend Jay Gunkelman. He's the man who has read well over 500,000 brain scans, and Dr. Marie Swingle, author of iMinds. Our goals provide information and promote options for better mental health. The NeuroNoodle Podcast is supported by listeners and businesses just like you.
Light up that headset here.
Are we live?
I think I'm still alive, but you never know.
You never want to be waking up with that phrase. Or maybe you do.
You see, I just posted my Aunt Inez yesterday celebrated her 104th birthday, and she's intact. You know, she plays cards with the family members that stop over. She wins quite often. She's still sharp, and she drove until she was 100. But basically, the Bethany homes where she's at in Fargo have a driver and a van, and they'll take you wherever. It's Fargo. You can go over, a couple of minutes later, you're wherever you need to be. So, and they'll pick you up and drive you wherever you need to go. She putts around and visits with friends elsewhere, but she stays really quite active. She's not got great balance, and she decided rather than a walker, which is awkward, the wheelchair works. She'll wheel up, and she stands up. She's capable, but bright enough to sit down when it's warranted. So.
Happy birthday, 104. That's a heck of a run. Keep it going.
Well, environment and genes and good life and
you don't mean American Eagle genes?
She had a whole pile of kids. I think maybe 8 kids, if I'm not mistaken.
Dr. Murray, we're talking about 104-year-old relative.
Yeah, my Aunt Inez.
Okay.
She's quite intact still. She had a whole pile of family members visiting. A picture of cousins I don't normally get to see, all in one spot. So it was convenient. She convened it very nicely. So
nice.
So.
Are we going to have a special surprise guest, Jay?
What's that?
Is Heather going to join us? I forgot who you.
I don't know whether we're going to have a guest or not. There's a request. And,
a request. Okay, very good.
And at that point, I said, it's a group decision, and you have to put together a note and a bio, and so people know kind of who you are, what you contribute and whatnot, if you're going to make it in. So, well,
that means we won't have a guest then, Jay.
Oh, come on! It's not as bad as APA requesting references that aren't older than 10 years.
Can we go on that? I want to rant on that. I think
go.
That's absolutely absurd. I would say in many, many fields, apart from forgetting the pioneers, you're forgetting the groundwork on which, the foundations literally on which all we stand. And I don't want to be too dramatic, but I mean, houses crumble when you don't respect the foundation. And a lot of the things, I consider myself relatively well read. I think a lot of the work now is going into minutia, which, we need the macro and the micro. But what are you referencing back to? So we're splintering off, and again, not necessarily negative, but you're not permitted to reference back to how you got where you're going or where you want to go. I think it's absolutely asinine. Now, if you have a paper,
I think you're being gentle, actually.
Okay, so Yeah. Okay. Where to go? I'm
You know,
reading my rant, Pete.
if I'm going to talk about DC activity in the brain, I can't reference Catan, 1875,
Yeah.
who found it.
Yeah.
They won't accept the reference.
Yeah.
Now I can find something current that referenced him, but what the hell?
Yeah.
And my seminal work on phenotypes is from 2005. I can't even reference that.
Yeah. No, it
So
drives me freaking nuts. Now I understand
I
what you're
have a
trying to like.
solution.
Uh-huh.
I don't give talks
Yeah.
that I have to do anything administrative. So whoever has me do a talk has to submit paperwork and come up with the references themselves. I don't do that stuff anymore.
Well,
Happy
you've
to
got
do a
the
talk.
status and the caliber, so good on you, Jay. But I'm going to continue on my rant because I know why they started doing it, because they want to be careful of the old fogies who stop reading, or the young fogies for that matter, who essentially stop reading the literature.
Which fogies are we?
Don't keep up to date. But
I'm pretty fogified here.
yeah. But sir, you keep up to date. In fact, you're in the race car out in front, yeah. I mean, let's repeat this on every single bloody show until somebody starts listening. It's absolutely absurd.
But I mean, you go to court, you recite court cases, Miranda is from in the 60s. So like what you can't like what's
updating?
Hey,
Yeah,
ChatGPT in court quotes stuff that doesn't even exist,
Yes, it does.
There's judges that have busted lawyers for using it, quoting case law that doesn't actually exist.
Love it.
So, well, ChatGPT has hallucination stuff too. I mean, it's okay. You need to be wiser than it.
We're not ready yet. I mean, as usual, we're releasing things way too prematurely. Whether I call it artificial versus assisted intelligence. I think the more popular term is human in the loop. But we're pre-launching for finances. Everybody wants to be first at the post. But I mean, we're really potentially doing some harm. But then there's all of this fantastic stuff that, of course, we want to support and rush with. So. Yeah,
there's actually a really great talk today at 3:00 Pacific time. Arnaud Delorum, who wrote most of the content for EEG Lab, and he's going to be talking about machine learning and EEG, and the strengths and weaknesses of the approach. He's got an academically balanced view of things. He's not trying to sell anything. All of his software that he developed has always been shareware. Nice. So you got to honor that. Anyway, it's a free talk. He's giving it through Tiff Thompson's School of Neurotherapy, but it's free. But it's at 3:00 Pacific time today, and he's probably one of the top quantitative processing persons on EEG and ERP in the world. Extremely brilliant and extremely nice. An approachable, brilliant person. They're not all that way,
So we know.
We had an interesting Q&A last night, Dr. Marie and Jay. I thought it was pretty interesting. One of the interesting questions was, who's the first neurofeedback practitioner? We got to get them a T-shirt that says "I'm number one."
And my best guess is it was probably Birbaumer in Germany. But
training or treating epileptics. What was the first? What was the practice?
They basically saw that you could control cortical excitability, and you could train it, and they had a kind of a Pong-like game the pong is usually a ball coming from one side to the other across the screen. So they could control the speed. It was a random trajectory and a random location for the start, and you could control the size of your slow cortical potential, electronegative, electropositive, and they could control the size of the window and the speed of what was coming. So you'd have to get the window to the point where the little rocket ship would fly through it. And they'd get the window smaller and the rocket going faster. And pretty soon you get pretty good at moving it up and down. Once you get good at controlling it, then they say, well, for epilepsy, you've got to go electropositive. And that turns off seizures. Even an ongoing seizure can be aborted. And if you have an aura, you can flip the switch and stop it from ever occurring.
Cats, that was seizure, right? Rocket fuel. I'm trying to put the video editor is trying to learn neurofeedback here. So.
Uh-oh, we're in trouble now.
We are.
So, Barry had trained some cats how to control SMR for food. Now, those cats at the end of the experiment, normally at the end of an experiment, you sacrifice the animals and you start a new experiment with new animals. But the experiment that he needed to do was for NASA. They had wanted somebody to do a dose response curve for monomethylhydrazine, which is a rocket fuel propellant that is extremely toxic. It strips away GABA, so your nervous system gets more and more and more excitable. And some hallucinatory sort of perceptions in space they thought might be due to some rocket fuel leaking around, and the janitors were convulsing. So, they thought they had to do something. So they wanted to get a dose response curve, which was going along swimmingly, except Barry left those SMR cats in the cat pool and they didn't seize. They would get more agitated. They start to pant and they get a frozen posture, and eventually they seize. Well, the normal ones were going off into seizure land at the dose, and his cats were just standing still, going, this SMR stuff's pretty good. Keep me from doing what all those other cats are doing, convulsing and dying, So anyway, it was just an observation at that point that SMRs stopped the seizing. And Barry was initially working in sleep. And SMR is a sleep spindle, and it's seen during the daytime as a stabilizing rhythm, and you can train it. And, it basically stumbled. Most of science is basically stumbling on a rock and looking down and saying, oh, geez, it's a freaking diamond, casual observations, and you make some sense out of it.
Yeah. Silly putty.
Well, I mean, if you look, I don't know the numbers, I can throw them out, invent them or whatnot, which I wouldn't do in these days. But no, I think the percentage of, it's not just chance, but it's as Jay was saying, people just doing stuff and observing that something different is happening, or you have the anomaly or the outlier. Everybody knows I'm fascinated with outliers. Yeah, like how many things can you, count? It's chance or coincidence or somebody noting something. Even, the work that we're doing with harmonics, if I could tell a little tale out of school of my own father, Dr. Swingle Sr. He was playing around with some sound frequencies and had some grad students in the lab next door doing something else. And they were just like, oh my God, I can't stay awake. We're just falling asleep all the time. And then they put two and two together, that sounds that my father was playing with were actually contributing to sleep and fatigue. Yeah, and ta-da! you know. So, and I think
Sometimes the sound in the room next door ends up being something that changes the state, you know.
yeah.
Uh,
I
uh,
remember when I was doing my first, full cues as well. Oh gosh, we're going back late 1990s. I don't mind dating myself here, but I would, be working with somebody, and all of a sudden you'd see this massive bleep. It was the telephone, the good old-fashioned ring dial phone in the room next door. And it wasn't an ERP per se. I mean, it wasn't the surprise element of the sound. That actual frequency
yeah.
was doing something. So it's so cool. It's so cool. So don't stop looking, everybody. Don't
Yeah.
stop looking.
You know, sometimes the thing next door is something that has a strong influence. Barry Sterman was giving a lecture at a conference, and they have meetings that break down, and they have the little accordion door between two rooms, and that's not really great sound protection. So Barry's a professor. He does not like to be interrupted, and he's a bit distractible. So next door to him was a laughter therapy group. Ha ha ha, ho ho ho, he, ha ha ha, and it wasn't very long before Barry was distracted by this to the point he says, "What the hell is going on over there?"
I can picture it. Yeah.
But that's AAPB has a broad range of various interests, including laughter therapy, apparently, and it was an interesting juxtaposition. Anyway, it's a great memory. Remembering Barry is always fun. He was quite a character, one of life's outliers. So.
So seizures was number one. What was like number two? I mean, I know ADHD is most efficacious, but that wasn't a thing till later. So how did it progress on how neurofeedback could be applied to help people feel better?
We were doing alpha training for alcoholism in 1972. We wrote a grant to NIH for funding for a study of it because we saw it working so well. And it wasn't funded. I mean, they quit funding studies in the early 70s, and 74 wasn't going to get any funding. So, but it didn't mean we stopped doing it. And it was picked up. Alpha training was also done at the Manager Foundation, and they were into consciousness stuff. And one of their groups there, Peniston and Kukulski, observed that alcoholics had these low voltage fast EEGs, and boy, wouldn't it be interesting if they trained alpha, and maybe alpha and theta, because at the Manager they also did meditation stuff, and they brought in Swami Rama, and they saw delta rhythms and theta rhythms and interesting things that you didn't see in normal waking consciousness EEG studies. So that they actually did alpha theta. My work was basically just alpha training. We had very, very good success. And alpha theta training as a portion of the training for addiction even was in our phenotype-driven study for treatment of addiction. The EEG phenotype determined the neurofeedback protocol. 2/3 of the people that had addiction had EEG endophenotypes that required alpha theta as a portion of their training. The other 1/3 had anterior cingulate problems, and alpha theta at the back of the head isn't going to fix an anterior cingulate issue. So that Peniston got 70%. He missed the 1/3 that had the anterior cingulate issue. And our 100% success study is unbelievable. Who believes
70% in addiction? I mean,
yeah, I know. And we published N of 30 with 100% still clean and sober at 1 year with the Woodcock-Johnson 3 follow-up. And it's hard to believe 100% of the people are still clean and sober at the end of 1 year. But in psychology, isn't it, if you get rid of the drive, you're supposed to get rid of the behavior? Isn't that the way it's supposed to work? Well, we got rid of the neurophysiological drive, either the over-arousal or the cingulate drive. And if you got rid of the drive, the behavior of addiction is just not there.
Mhm.
And, it's, 100% is what we found.
Can I
And
bring
I,
this?
I told my business partner, who was eager to show me data before the 30, and I said, don't even bother me with data from them until you have an N of 30, because it's, in group statistics don't even work at all until 30, and we're probably looking at subsets. So until you at least get 30, don't even bother pointing the data at me. So, but when he hit 30, he was so excited, But we published it. It was a special publication in the Biofeedback Journal. So, yeah, 2008, I think it was.
I was wondering, if we can do a bit of a sidebar, Peter. Do you want to continue with the history here? Yeah.
Go right
I
ahead.
just wanted to add, a lot of, working with children, and we talked yesterday about Z-scores and, training to normal. And, it's kind of interesting when you see a little munchkin that has those quote unquote signatures. And then the $1 million question is, do you train it out? And one of the things that I'm very overt with parents is like, do not like the experimentation phase in adolescence that the majority of people go through, like zero tolerance for exploration of any type of substance that has any potential for addiction. But I also think you want to be really careful about working on it because of its quote unquote predictive nature, because some of the, I would say, most prolific producers have these quote unquote addictive signatures, but they get addicted to things that are positive. They get addicted to curiosity, and then they observe, and then they produce on it. So this is one of the catches for I say all of us who practice. Be really, really careful when you're working to individuals all the way up to youth. If it has not expressed itself, be careful. So I think it's really important.
The anterior cingulate, which is the underpinning of obsessive compulsive and all of that, if that was a horse and you could put a saddle on it and ride it, you'd win a lot of races. It's a hell of a ride. It can get you a laser focus and keep it for an extended period of time. Gerard Finnemore from South Africa found anterior cingulate deviations in the ultimate athletes that do ultra marathons. The ones they run for days and days, and a few of them die. Those races. And the people that row across the Atlantic. Those kind of athletes have an anterior cingulate, and that's the horse they're riding. If they didn't have one that was able to focus like that, they wouldn't be in that kind of an event. You couldn't be.
It's direction versus correction. I always talk about that. Majority of elite athletes have that. Okay, you don't want to see what mine is, Jay, I don't know what yours is.
Hey everyone, if you're enjoying the show and want to help us keep it going, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Your support helps improve the content and brings on great guests and grow the show. Join us on Patreon at patreon.com/NeuroNoodle. But hey, if supporting financially isn't in the cards right now, no worries. You can still help us out for free by liking, subscribing, and sharing this episode. It really makes a difference and helps more people find the show. If we've earned it, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. The NeuroNoodle Podcast is supported by listeners and businesses just like you.
I think it is a feature that you really want to direct it, not overtly correct it.
Yeah. Well, when they did the documentary on me, they walked in the door, surprised me. They had an EEG amp. They hooked me up and recorded my EEG, and they asked me to predict what it was going to be. What are you going to see? And I know my EEG. I've seen it a lot of times, and I have a pretty good subjective feeling for how things are changing with getting older. So I predicted pretty much exactly what the alpha frequency was going to be, slightly slower than it had been. It's at about 12. It had been at 13 or so. And frontal midline theta, which is the counterbalance that keeps you from being crazy with fast alpha. It allows a certain amount of craziness, obviously, So,
Yeah, what's your bar there, Jay?
Yeah, exactly. But the frontal midline theta also is lack of fear, and that has allowed some pretty outlier behavior, shall we say, to occur. Diving off cliffs and racing, sidecar motorcycle racing. Some things are not necessarily the most rationally sane things, but they sure were fun.
Jay, when
Anyway.
did flat sensors come out? When did you go from needles to flat sensors? I'm sure neurofeedback picked up directly.
Flat sensors were around. You'd have to make them yourself back in the day. And you would take a quartz plate. Quartz is, you can make a nice flat piece of quartz, and you have another flat piece of quartz. And you get a piece of wire with a stripped end, and you put a solder bead of some metal on the quartz, and you smash it with the other one, and you got a flat disc. And you get them all about the right size with the right size, and actually Mayo Clinic's laboratory became famous for being able to localize in their 6-channel EEG where tumors were. And what they actually had was a bad electrode. They had made an electrode with mu metal, and it had a bimetallic effect that created some spikes. And
wait, mu metal?
Mu metal. It was a
not mu waves, or you need mu metal?
Mu metal. It's a particular kind of metal, and they wanted to try it for electrodes. So they had different electrodes, and they didn't realize that different metals could end up creating problems. And the radiology people sent people with known tumors. They knew from radiology that there was a tumor and where it was, and they sent them blind as to where the tumor might be to them to see if they could localize it. So they sit their 6-channel on there. The one bad electrode was stuck by pure happenstance, 5 cases in a row on top of the right spot. They became famous for being able to localize tumors by this pure artifact. Now, they realized, well, at the first, they thought spikes were EEG. I mean, if you're the first people to be doing EEG and you're used to doing it with needles sticking into stuff, you're used to seeing spike trains. So this slow stuff they thought was all artifact, and the spike trains they thought were real. And later, they realized, the slow wave is actually the tumor location, and the spike is just an artifact. They didn't tell anybody that, by the way, it was an accident. We did figure out how to actually do it, and we really did have it in our data, but we misinterpreted it. It was an accident. We got a reputation by accident. Now, when Charlie Joerger, not the neurologist, the neurologist, epileptologist, not the pilot, Charlie Joerger, who started Mayo Clinic, he also started Langley Porter out in San Francisco, and MD, PhD, brilliant man. And he taught neurology residents going through UC med school in San Francisco. And anyway, Charlie was one of the greats. Anyway,
don't get that patch moist.
Let me. I'm going to look up and share something from Charlie here. If you give me a moment, this is his handout, which was given to neurology residents going through. Langley Porter, he called it instant electroencephalography because it's like a weekend wonder workshop. They're going to be electroencephalographers after this brief course, So he was making fun of them. You're going to be an instant electroencephalographer, but he does go through and does a very nice job. Let me rotate this. He basically points to all sorts of interesting things, but this is 1970s. Look at this. He's telling the neurology residents about biofeedback of EEG and the alpha rhythm. Anyway, this is his EEG in 1932 or 33 when they translated Berger from the German and built the first lab at Mayo Clinic. And this is his raw EEG, and I think this is a respiratory a wave of some sort. Anyway, respiratory curve. Anyway, he's got lots of EEG samples of various kinds of artifact and everything, but various clinical things as well. And at the end, in order to keep everybody a little bit more humble, this is the EEG of man, monkeys, cats, and guinea pigs. We're not that much different than all of these, really. I actually posted the EEGs without the labels online, and asked. I offered $100. This is quite a few years ago, probably close to 20 years ago now. And $100 was worth a little more then. If anybody could guess, I gave the list of what they were. If anybody could match up what everything was to the EEG patterns, and there were only a couple of people that tried and they didn't get it right. But apparently it wasn't that enticing an option. But this is Charlie's handout, and it actually does a fairly good job taking students kind of through the difficulties that you run into for interpreting raw waveforms. But Charlie was quite helpful in educating, because he read in the lab I was the tech in. 2 days a week he would stop in for about 4 hours and read EEGs. So I got a lot of education quite directly from Charlie. When he retired, he was 85, and he retired and moved to Paradise, California, which later, after he passed, it burned down. But as he would say, I'm retiring and moving to Paradise, and he invited me to his 100th birthday. He's 85, he says, I'll invite you to my 100th birthday. And I thought for a second, I said, okay, I'll accept that on the contingency that you accept the invitation to mine. So anyway, he was really a hoot. He gave me the Offner T-type amplifier that he had started all of the state hospital labs with. The first transistorized EEG machine. Frank Offner built them. Beckman bought him out, and Beckman became Theta and Nicolay, the modern lineage of the amplifiers that we see.
And Jay, you used to build those things, and we're talking like old school, like combo phonograph, TV, big piece of furniture, walnut. When did they get reduced to a size where you could carry it to help do mobile or portable readings?
In 1976, at the California Biofeedback Society meeting, we showed in a booth a pocket-sized brainwave analyzer that you could put an earpiece in and listen to 3 separate tones, and you could adjust the frequency bands 1/10 of a hertz at a time up and down across the frequency spectrum, and you could set them next to each other. They were 120 decibel an octave roll-off analog filters. So you could have them a half a hertz apart, and they really didn't interact very much. So it was literally the ability to listen to low, middle, and high tone. It was a major chord like an organ, so the 3 notes that you'd listen to were the low, middle, and high notes of a major chord. And you were listening to, low, middle, and high frequencies being modulated as you walk down the street. And you could wear it and listen. Now, it had an instrumentation output. You could plug it into a computer. It was an isolated output. But we didn't sell one of them. Not one. And I had already paid, too much for the cases. And so that's when I went to work in the EEG lab. Because manufacturing into the niche market of neurofeedback, EEG, biofeedback, we had an FDA-registered EMG feedback device, a 2-channel for muscle rehab, flexor extensor pair. We had a temperature feedback device, which is FDA'd as well. And the EEG was ready to roll, but had no sales, none, not a one. So I thought that's when I came up with the how do you make a small fortune? You start with a big one, and I left the neurofeedback, biofeedback, and went into just classical laboratory EEG for another 20 years. So 100 EEGs a day for over 20 years.
Well, the reason we're talking about this is because it came up. A member of our audience asked a question about the beginnings of neurofeedback, and we're just trying to go along the journey and help answer that question and figure out how people are trying to obviously want to help people, but to monetize it so you can make a living doing this, helping people. So we started with seizures, with epileptics, and then what was number 2 again, Jay?
Probably alcoholism.
Cravings, right?
Yeah, well, there's relaxation. It wasn't necessarily advertised as a clinical thing. It was more of a meditative experiential relaxation, alpha training for relaxation. And but that wasn't necessarily, again, thought of as a clinical intervention for anxiety or anything like that at that time. It was just more of the long-haired hippies that were in the Biofeedback Research Society were into experience, and the alpha state was something that they were interested in, and obviously the theta state as well, and meditative states. And again, the Manager Foundation ended up with more of the theta content and meditative state stuff than Kamiya's lab, which was pretty much alpha. So the alpha theta crossover stuff and all that came out of Peniston and Kukulski's work at Manager. Elmer and Elise Green were the heads of that laboratory.
Jay, blow the dust off of the glia. Back in the 70s, wasn't that when the mood
I'm sorry.
We don't have a good time here.
And I'm just permanently silly,
Yeah.
Good problem.
I'm so happy I'm giddy, That's.
But remember mood rings? That was a 70s thing, right? Because you're like, hey, let me watch the color that I turn. Why couldn't we take advantage of that, or did we? Or what? Pet rock? You guys put all your energy in pet rocks? The hell's wrong with you people?
You can have a watch that tells you everything. I get my messages, my email, my phone calls, everything on the damn watch. So that and it tells you my heart rate, that tells me my sleep scores. It tracks. If my heart rate goes too high, which I have readjusted it up a couple of times, so it doesn't alarm me quite as often. But nevertheless, it still does alarm you when it gets crazy high. And it's also alarms you if it gets too low. So, the mood ring was more interesting in that it warned others. you know, you could always check, but if they checked, they might change their approach.
Was your engagement ring a mood ring? Is that what you gave out, Jay?
In stories you probably shouldn't share. I was a kid in the 70s, and I would always get so upset because everybody had these mood rings that would change colors all the time, and mine never did.
Yeah, well, you have to actually have to have some heat there. Um, we would teach control over temperature in the hands for migraine. But you're teaching control over the sympathetic nervous system, not just the temperature in your hands. So that's vasoconstriction everywhere, not just your hands. And the temperature device we had was sensitive to 1/10,000th of a degree change per second. We use the derivative of temperature for the feedback because temperature is such a slow changing signal. You feed back the derivative, which shows change. And then you also have an absolute, number to 1/10 of a degree, what's your actual temperature. So you could see the change up or down and then your actual temperature. And it was very sensitive, and people used it effectively to abort migraine. The 1972 front page edition of the Jamestown Sun, the local newspaper in Jamestown, North Dakota, where the state hospital was, has us above the line, just below the line, Nixon, jobless up, economy down. And I'm thinking, geez, that's that's the Back to the Future, same kind of headlines, So anyway, we were above the fold, and Nixon was below the fold on the local paper. But it was all about us being able to treat migraine and cluster headaches. And anyway, we hit the front page of the local paper. Whoopee.
But going back then, Jay, there was a whole lot more budgeted beds for mental health care patients than there is today, isn't there? Wasn't there?
Yeah, when I started in 1972, the state hospital had about 2,500 patients. 3 years later, when I left, they had about 700. Now, in California, they opened the doors and threw people out without really placing them anywhere. And that's the beginning of our homeless problem out here. But in North Dakota, they got the gold award, the cream of the crud, the best bad system for throwing everyone out of the hospital. They actually found halfway houses and group homes and things like that to put people out in. If you weren't an immediate harm to yourself or others, you were basically not going to stay in the state hospital anymore. And they were budget line item vetoed out. And I have to say that a halfway house is a lot cheaper than a state hospital, which is a massive facility that has to be kept up. So.
But whatever happened, do you think that played a role in mental health, the issues that we're having? Because kids, you can't take them to an ER for a mental health issue; they'll sit there for a week.
Well, and mental health seems like an emergency, but an emergency room isn't really equipped for that sort of a thing. There should be a mental urgent care kind of an option, and there are police departments that are now getting social workers that end up responding to domestic events and with police, but they go in, the police are there in case it's not in control, and but the social workers are there because this is really not a police matter. This is a psychiatric emergency. So
there are good systems out there that I think people should consider modeling. Essentially, when you go into ER, there are three ones. One is, body injury. So, your legs, sawed off, or you're having a heart attack or whatnot. And then you have
You must come from farm country.
I don't know. I'm giving a dramatic example.
Arms and legs missing. That's farm country.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. And then the other is psychiatric, so the mental health, and they also bifurcate. The other one is drugs, right? So and sometimes it is difficult for hospitals to differentiate immediately between non-influence mental health issue versus drug influence. But I have to give some kudos to our Vancouver downtown hospital. They're really good at triage and figuring out one of those three. So
yeah. Well, one of my exes was an emergency room physician, and in a circumstance like that, you have to have something's wrong or something not wrong, intuitive sense of whether what kind of emergency is this, So, but she was an alpha female if there ever was one. Holy moly. Motorcycle riding on tracks. I mean, not just on the street casually, but on tracks. 1,000cc motorcycles on tracks, and she didn't take at all. She had abbreviations in her charts that were unique. T to T ratio, tattoo to tooth ratio. So, but she had somebody come in drunk and disorderly and bite one of her orderlies.
Oh wow.
She's dead. She's passed. What she did is essentially take some succinylcholine, inject the guy, paralyze him. He couldn't even breathe, and they bagged him. As she told them, if you ever come in here again and do anything to the staff here, we're not going to bag you. You're going to die here, not breathing, and we're going to bring you back out of this in a few minutes after we're done with the procedure. We've got to take care of your injury, your wound, but don't come in here screwing around with my staff. Or you won't leave. She scared the hell out of this guy, and that he came to and left. And
better than the Peniston protocol.
She would do the night shift in Morro Bay. There's a little emergency room out there, and it was quiet, and sometimes there was nothing happening, and she'd say, well, I'm going to go lay down, and if something happens, come and wake me up. But if you're going to wake me up, I don't wake up well, and I can guarantee she does not wake up well. So she said, open the door a little bit and start to say a little louder each time, paging psycho bitch doctor from hell, paging psycho bitch doctor from hell. She would wake up laughing. And that was the only way to get her up without her being a bear when she woke up, So,
Dr. Marie,
yeah,
give us an app update.
Yeah. We've just released the third of our app series. So we have our flagship, the BrainCalm, which essentially quiets without sedation. So really good for any state of hyperarousal. Excellent, by the way, using 10 minutes in the beginning of a therapy or just pre-neuro, just for the quieting, a lot of the things we've been talking about in terms of addiction and the like. The second one, our insomnia, called Sleep. The title says it all. It helps the brain to learn how to get into stage 1 sleep. And just 2 weeks ago, is it 2 weeks? No, a week ago. My timelines are all mucked up now, traveling too much.
Too much time travel.
Yeah.
Need an app.
No, we just launched Focus. Again, we're really, really proud because it's a two-pronged approach, dare I say. Everybody thinks about stimulants within the school system for Focus, but our app also has many, many programs and choices for individuals that the reason why they can't remember or they blank out on tests, etc., it's actually over-arousal, so anxiety. So the manual goes through all of this in terms of what setting and track is right for you and your clients. So again, we're really, really proud about it. Reach out to us if you have any questions, and you can check out the website, swinglesonic.com.
So as school starts, you think there might be students that could use some help with focus?
Entirely.
Do you think there might be people out there that have difficulty with sleep that could be helped with something that helps them fall asleep better? Geez. There might be a market somewhere for this. I don't know where, but there might be people interested in the product that you're being, good enough to produce for them. So.
Yeah.
And I want to stay up all night in October for somebody's birthday party.
Jay. Well, I've seen some of the Hawaiian shirts that they're trying to make. Holy moly, they're having fun with this thing. It's because of the eye surgery this year, they're calling it Gunkelman's Island, like Gilligan's Island, and they're having a lot of fun. Anyway, it's the evening of the 8th, we take over the yacht club, and from that point forward, the next 3 days are EG meeting. The evening of the 8th is just tomfoolery and registration, but the next 3 days are EG meeting, serious science, and tomfoolery. And the evening of the 11th is the birthday party. It'll be a luau, Hawaiian-style luau, and fundraising stuff, I wonder how long has it been since I've had a shave? How long has it been? So it might get auctioned off. We'll see if there's people willing to outbid me to shave it off. I'll be bidding to keep it. But whether you bid, when you put your money in the pot, you lose it one way or the other. Whether I pay more to keep it or they pay more to shave it, it all goes to the students anyway. So anyway.
October 8th, and if you can't party with us, I believe we have.
You can do it live stream. We have 15 CEs for $49. I think that's actually a very low price for CEs. Somebody told us it'd be like $150, $200. It'd be right for it, but we're not doing the CEs for us to make money. We're doing CEs for people to get education, and they can, spend money on students whenever
once you get around to it.
Whenever they get around to it. So there'll be some of those at the meeting as well for people who get around to it. Anyway.
All the links are in the show description.
And that's the only real way to get a hold of me. I'm retired from normal consultation stuff. I do have groups that look at EEGs, but they're run by others. I just show up to look at EEGs, which still is fascinating me. So I'm happy to do that.
And for all the people who are saying, well, why are you talking about all this? Well, we get together every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Central Time, 4 p.m. Pacific, and we take all the questions and comments from our viewers and listeners, and we address them there. And if there's something that, really piques our interest, we carry it over and we get a little bit more into it today. So thank you, Radar Ashwood, our loyal viewer and listener. His question, it started with, tell me about the first neurofeedback practice, and we sort of got there.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
As close as you're going to get.
Yeah.
And and they still call it the practice of medicine.
If you're an expert, run away.
So,
Jay Gunkelman, Dr. Marie Swingle, have a great week, and thank you guys for double duty this week. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
good to see you.
Hey everyone, if you're enjoying the show and want to help us keep it going, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Your support helps improve the content and brings on great guests and grow the show. Join us on Patreon at patreon.com/NeuroNoodle. But hey, if supporting financially isn't in the cards right now, no worries. You can still help us out for free by liking, subscribing, and sharing this episode. It really makes a difference and helps more people find the show. If we've earned it, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Noodle Podcast is supported by listeners and businesses just like you. Hey everyone, here's a quick message from our good old buddy Joshua Moore at Alternative Behavioral Therapy.
I'm preparing to do an introduction to QEEGD phenotypes. This is my first workshop on the topic, and this is just the introductory overview of the project. This is going to be very, very basic. So let's review each phenotype. We're just going to go through them one by one. If you look at the DSM-1, 2, or 3, and you look at the first chapter, it actually acknowledges that the DSM in mental health is just, quote, a descriptive adaptation, unquote. We're going to customize the interventions and tailor them to the individual's brain activity, not just applying the treatments or trainings to the individual's phenotype and maybe even their variants, but also customizing the protocols themselves to fit that person's individual unique frequency patterns. Maybe a dozen ways to have excessive energy in your nervous system, and then there's an infinite amount of ways to relate poorly to that excessive energy, which means that there is a lot of variations in what someone might call anxiety. And that doesn't mean that we're talking about the same thing when we're talking about anxiety. So complicated stuff. But when we look at a brain map, we get some basis for which we can start talking about what is this energy. Then we have to go to the client. We have to start talking to the client about what is your association to this specific kind of energy that I can see now. Then we get to care about things that insurance doesn't restrict us on. We get to care about like the person in a broader way. 85% improvement in mental health report following pairing a medication with a specific phenotype. You know, geez. Okay, have you seen 85% in any mental health studies for any medication? I'm going to be going over a whole bunch of different types of tests, assessments, and things that can be used that have things called neurocorrelates, which you saw some of those already, better success outcomes. That's what we really want. We need better predictive power. We need better individualization. That's what we want.